Today's video, we're going to be upgrading our 486 with a new video card.
We review all technology from games to all PCs, and don't forget the toys. Don't get ancient electronics. We cover it all.
So this here is the card we will be upgrading to, and this is a Diamond Stealth 64 VLB card from 1994, and this card is the creme de la creme of VLB cards for 1994. I would even argue that this may be the best all-around VLB video card ever. I know that's a bold claim, that's a bold statement, but hear me out. I do think this might be one of the best, if not the best, then it is definitely up there as one of the greatest VLB cards ever made. So the first thing I want to talk about actually is the video chip that this card uses. So this card uses the S3 Vision 964 chip. That's already a pretty advanced chip for a VLB card. So the Vision 964 chip was kind of one of S3's higher end offerings. This card uses, I believe it uses VRAM as opposed to DRAM, so the VRAM is faster. I believe the 864 would have used the slower DRAM. So this does use faster RAM overall, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the memory in a minute here. But yeah, this was S3's second generation Windows accelerator chips, and it does have a 64-bit wide frame buffer for you technical junkies there. Overall, I've been using this card for a while now, and this is a great card. This is a great chip here. Of course, S3 is known for their very high compatibility. The Vision chips are no exception. Later chips might be even more compatible with games with less glitches and things like that, but the Vision chips are still excellent chips for compatibility in DOS. The one thing about this card and this chip I want to say is some of these VLB cards, they'll have two chips on there, and one chip might handle, DOS, VGA, and the other one might be handling acceleration for Windows. And when you have that kind of situation, you might have a really cruddy chip for the DOS VGA part. It might come from like Oak Technologies or something like that, and it's not the fastest and it's not the greatest. It might do Windows acceleration very well, but it might be so-so or even not very good at all with DOS. This guy does it all. This is a very competent chip with lower resolutions in VGA in DOS use, and it is also an excellent Windows accelerator chip. It works very well under Windows as well, so this does it all. Very good in Windows and very good in DOS. I also want to bring up a website here that I kind of use as a reference sometimes. It's called Dependency Injection. It's a great site. I don't think he's updated it for like a while now, but a really good site. And what he did on this site is he actually benchmarked a lot of VLB video cards. So it's a good source to kind of cross-reference your benchmarks with. What he found with this card is in DOS, it actually scored, it's within the top 10, and he ran cards like the Mach 64, I believe, and cards that use the Arc Logic chip, and of course the Sang Labs ET4000 VLB card. And I believe this, in DOS use, I believe this came in 7th place. And that might not sound spectacular, but you have to remember, when you're at the top, the difference is very minor. A lot of these benchmarks, the difference is less than 1 frame per second with performance. So this might have came in 7th place, but in most of the benchmarks, it might have been behind some of the other cards by literally a fraction of a frame, not even a full 1 FPS. So this was still a very, very good performer in DOS, and of course we're going to test that in this video once we install it. As far as Windows go, specifically Windows 3.1, and it's probably would be true for older and newer Windows as well. This card came in first. So when in his testing of all the cards, this was the fastest under Windows. Alright, so now that we've talked about the chip here, let's talk about the big, cool and interesting thing about the card, and that is the memory. So this card can utilize a full 4 megabytes of memory. So again, with the Vision 9XX series, I believe that is the faster VRAM and not DRAM. So right here, this card is currently utilizing 4 megabytes. So that's 4 megabytes of memory on a VLB card. It's quite rare to find. This isn't the only VLB card that came with a possible 4 megabytes of RAM. There were a few other, but they're quite uncommon. I don't like to throw around the word rare, but I do believe in this case it's actually pretty rare. I also believe there were a few ISA, 16-bit ISA video cards that you could upgrade to 4 megabytes of video memory. Those might even be rarer than the VLB ones. I think there was like a Mach 64 ISA card that could take 4 megabytes of RAM. Not 100% sure on that, but that one might be even rarer than these guys. But that is a whopping huge amount of memory for a VLB card. So what kind of benefit do we get from that massive amount of memory on a video card for the year 1994? Well, in DOS, pretty much nothing. DOS doesn't really utilize the extra memory, and you're fine with just 1 megabyte cards for the most part in DOS. So this extra memory really comes in handy when we get into Windows, like Windows 3.1. That's when this memory really shines. But like I said, in DOS, it's not really a factor at all. So when I picked up this card, it did only come with 2 megabytes of memory on it. So I did have to get extra memory here to expand it to the full 4 megabytes. So how does all this extra memory help when it comes to Windows and Windows acceleration? Well, first of all, again, please bear in mind this isn't a technical channel. I do believe there's something that can be done when you have a certain amount of memory that does generally speed things up. I think it's called like memory interwaving or maybe interlacing with the memory. I'm not sure, and I could be wrong on that point, but I do know with the 4 megabytes of RAM, I think like programmers, they're able to do something with that memory that does in general speed things up, specifically with Windows acceleration. But I would say the biggest benefit to this extra memory is just higher resolutions and better color depth at higher resolution. So I'll give an example of that. Let's say we have a 2 megabyte VLB card and you're running Windows 3.1. The highest resolution you might be able to get with that card is 1280 by 1024 at 256 colors. That's good. That's pretty good, and that would be considered something that a high-end 2 megabyte VLB card would be able to do with Windows 3.1. But when you're talking this card and the full 4 megabytes, not only can we run a resolution like 1280 by 1024 at 64K high color, so thousands of colors as opposed to 256 colors, we can run much higher resolutions. We can go, we can do 1600 by 1200 and even higher with this card and this much memory. So if you want truly insane resolutions, this kind of card with this much memory is for you. The other thing is we can actually run lower resolutions, as I said earlier, at higher color depth. So we can run something like 800 by 600, probably with millions of colors. So that is a big advantage of this. Maybe not so much as far as games go, but maybe if you're doing things like CAD and you want like a lot of desktop space, or like Photoshop, if you're doing a lot of like photo manipulation back in 1994, things like that, and you want like all the colors, this would be the card to get. So let's just do a quick overview of this card here. Of course, it is a VLB card. Just a regular VGA connector right there on the front. Right here, looks like we have a feature connector and the BIOS for the card right here that is socketed. Right here we have the main chip, the Vision 964 chip. Right here, I'm not 100%, this might be something to do with like controlling the memory or the DAC or something like that right there. And then we have the memory right here. So right here, this is 2 megabytes of memory that I added. These were empty when I received this card. And I think right here would be I would guess this would be the other 2 megabytes, but Then we have these chips right here, and I'm not 100% sure what that is. This might be 1 megabyte and 1 megabyte, although that's kind of a weird way to do it. But if you guys know in the comments, let me know. Is this 1 megabyte and 1 megabyte, or is this 2 megabytes and this doing something else? So we have a jumper right here. I believe that is the only jumper. I'm not 100% sure what that does. I think it might have something to do with wait states, or you know, depending on the speed of your CPU, you either want this on or off. I'm not sure. I'll have to check. I don't quite remember, but that does appear to be the only jumper on this card. We're actually going to do some benchmarks. We're going to test this card with some games. We're going to run it in Windows, and we're going to see if we can reach some of those crazy, insane high resolutions. And yeah, I think this is going to be a very interesting addition to our 100 megahertz Intel Overdrive 486. So I'm really excited to start these benchmarks and check out the results. We will be putting it up against another video card, another high-end video card, just a reference, just to make sure my results are checking out against other people's results that I've seen online. So yeah, okay, enough of me chatting. Let's install this guy and let's start running some tests. Now, I found this card actually already installed in a 46 Tower that I picked up some time ago. And it does look like it has like a lot of the official drivers here. We got Windows 3.1 drivers, version 1.33. And I don't know what this is, video for Windows. I'm not sure what that is. Then we have OS 2, whoops. And then we have OS 2 drivers on 2 disks, the version 1.03. Well, okay, never mind. And then we have this here. This looks like drivers, installation utilities, DOS, Windows NT, and AutoCAD drivers, although that's version 1.03. And then we also have 2 disks of OS 2 drivers there. The BIOS, this looks like an older BIOS, so the previous owner of this card updated it. I'm guessing this was the original BIOS that came on the card, version 1.04, and it looks like the previous owner did upgrade it at some point to 1.06. And then I don't think I have the manual in here, but I have these weird, the In Control Tools reference guide was in here. Not much to that. And then just, this looks like CAD stuff. Turbo, DLD Classic, Diamond. I guess this card had something to do with AutoCAD. Maybe it was sold with AutoCAD or something. I mean, I guess it makes sense if you want all that memory, because I guess if you're doing a project in AutoCAD, you want like a lot of desktop screen space on your monitor to do your project. So I guess that makes sense. Maybe this card was really primarily geared toward people doing like CAD and stuff, and not necessarily gaming or anything like that, but more like for technical uses, which makes sense. It was probably quite an expensive card as well. Alright, so the Diamond Stealth 64 is installed. As you can see here on the post screen, it does come up and it says 4 megabytes display memory installed, so that is very good. We are off to a very good start. Everything seems to be working. Alright, so let's get to our favorite part of all these videos. Let's get to the bar chart, and we'll take a look at how this thing stacks up against the previous card using Phil's benchmark suite for DOS. Alright, so let's take a look at what we got here, and you can see the results immediately are apparent. So the ones to really pay attention are the red and the green. So the red is the previous video card, VLB card we had in here. That was that WD chip, the 90C33ZZ. Supposedly certain variations of that card are pretty fast if you can like change the wait states. My version had slower memory and it wasn't that fast. The green one here, that is the Diamond Stealth 64, and you can see in some of these it's not too huge, but in some of these it's a big difference. It's a noticeable jump in performance. 3D Bench 1.0C, obvious jump in performance there. Not so much in PC player, but it's still there. Doom, Doom, we get a good, what is that, like a 7 FPS jump. That's decent. And even Quake, we get a little bit of a jump. Now, the blue one next to it, that was just to compare. I didn't have my ET4000 card on hand. That was in a machine. But I did have my ArcLogic VLB card, which is... it trades blows with the ET4000 for, you know, the title of the fastest VLB card. It's up there. And if you could look at these numbers here, the ArcLogic card does beat the Diamond Stealth, but it is by like fractions of an FPS in some of these. It's within margin of error, but in most of these, the ArcLogic does beat the Stealth, but you wouldn't notice. It is less than 1 FPS, I think, in all, but maybe Doom, it picks up maybe 2 or so. So yeah, it's really close. So that's what I meant when I say like at the very top of these high performance VLB cards, the difference between them is very slight. That maybe you wouldn't even notice. So yeah, this that shows here, this Stealth 64, this is a high-end, top-notch performer in DOS. Now, without a proper benchmark, it was kind of hard to compare some of these games with the old video card I had in here, like Duke Nukem 3D. Even if I put them side by side, it was kind of hard to tell. But it did seem that on average, I was pulling a couple frames higher with the new card. And something I definitely did notice is there seemed to be less lows. So on average, maybe the FPS was about the same between the cards, with maybe like a couple, like 1 or 2 higher on average with this card. There definitely was less dips into like much lower numbers with the new cards.
Time to play with myself.
And it's largely the same story with terminal velocity here. It's very hard to tell. It does seem like it is, again, pulling a couple FPS higher than before. And it does definitely seem like it kind of maintains a more stable frame rate than it did with the prior card. But again, nothing that I can see is absolutely conclusive here. But also keep in mind, you know, it can vary on the game. Some games may benefit more from a faster video card than others. And here's a little bit of Descent 2 for your viewing pleasure. And yeah, this game performed. It ran fine with this setup. This game does have a built-in FPS counter, but unfortunately, I do have the full copy, but it's buried in a closet somewhere, so I just threw the demo of the game on here real quick. And I don't think the demo has the FPS counter command available. At least it wasn't working for me. But anyways, here it is. And to wrap things up, I wanted to try Commander Keen 4 just to see if this video card had an issue with the scrolling in the game, and it didn't. The game scrolled just fine. I did have a weird issue though on the overworld screen where like most of the bottom half of the screen would start flickering just flickering. I was able to easily fix that. You go into the options and you put enable the SVGA compatibility mode, and that seemed to fix the issue right up. And then after that, I had no other problems with the game. So yeah, a little bit surprised seeing this is the Vision chip is from S3. They're kind of known for compatibility, but this was a very minor issue and is very easy to fix in the options. So the install of the drivers was pretty standard, no surprises. Now, once it does get installed and you go into Windows and you run the, I believe it's called the Diamond In Control utility, it did prompt me to select my monitor. Now, of course, my monitor was built way after Windows 3.1, so it wasn't on the list. But so I had to go all the way up and into like user defined monitor, and then I kind of manually had to not define, but I had to manually select all the resolutions that the monitor could do, which was basically all of them as far as I know. And then once that was done, we were ready to go to set resolution. Now, there might have been more stuff in these drivers that I could have to tweak and whatnot. I didn't go deep into the drivers tweaking things. This was just like a basic setup. But overall, it was a pretty painless process. And as you can see here, we have our list of available resolutions, and it goes all the way up to 2048 by 1536, so quite impressive for a VLB card in Windows. And we'll start out with something pretty simple here, 1024 by 768. A lot of cards, at least higher end VLB cards can do this, but the one benefit from the extra memory is just the more colors. Like you can, 16.7 million high color mode with this card. I'm not quite sure a lot of other cards with less memory could pull that off. I could be wrong, but yeah, that is pretty impressive. So let's step it up. Let's see if we can go a little bit higher. And here we are at 1280 by 1024. And the cool thing about this card is we can run this resolution in 64K high color mode, where other cards you might only be able to pull off this resolution at 256 colors, regular VGA mode. This card doesn't have any problem with high color mode, and that really helps if you're doing something with photos here. Like I have Adobe up on here with images. You get all the colors, or at least most of the colors, and you're not limited to just 256. And of course, this gives you a lot of desktop space to do your work. Although I have to say, with my old man eyes, it still feels a little bit too crowded. Everything seems a little too small. Even working on my 18-inch monitor, it still feels kind of small to me, but that's just my personal preference. I prefer a little bit lower resolutions. It just must be my eyes. But yeah, it does give you a lot of desktop space to work with. So what about those super high resolutions like 2048 by 1536? Well, unfortunately, they come with a few caveats. First of all, you're going to have less color depth. At those high resolutions, the card's really only able to do 256 colors VGA. Not too bad. The other thing, though, is anything over 1280 by 1024, it really can't display on the screen at one time. I don't know what that is or why that is. I don't know if it's a limitation of the card or the memory, or maybe it's a limitation of Windows. I'm not sure, but if you look at the screen under desktop size, you'll see viewport size. And viewport size is pretty much the resolution at any one time you can see on the screen. Now, of course, you can scroll around and move around, but you're not getting the full resolution on the screen at once. So that is a little bit of a caveat, but I could still see how it could be very useful. It still gives you much more desktop space. You just can't see it all at once, and you kind of have to scroll around. But again, I can still see how that could really help out with certain projects. Unfortunately, at these higher resolutions, a lot of games and programs don't really scale correctly to the higher resolution, so they end up either being too small or they just look really awkward and weird on the screen with like a lot of just unused space. Alright, so let's see what WinBench version 3.1 score, what kind of goofy high score it gives us. So with the last VLB card in here, that WD chip VLB card, we got a score of like just a hair under 10 million. I think it was like 9,800,000 and something thousand. So let's see what we get with the Diamond Stealth 64. And we get just a little under 50 million. So I don't know why WinMark uses these absurdly large numbers for their WinMark score, but yeah, that is quite a jump in performance according to WinMark. So we went from just under 10 million to just under 50 million for WinMark. So looking good for the Diamond Stealth. So here's the first Castle of the Wind game. This is kind of like a classic Windows 3.1 or Windows 3 game, and it scales pretty decent in these higher resolutions. You get a lot of viewing space on here. I remember playing this game at quite a bit lower resolution than this, and yeah, you get a lot of screen space. You can really see a lot. You can't really customize like the windows too much here, like in the inventory screen. I mean, you can move things around on the side, but I don't really think you can mess around with like the character portrait on the left, but that can be really handy because in this game you get like bags, and there's like bags and bags, and you put things in the bag, and it's useful to have the space to sort of open up multiple windows. If you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about here. So these higher resolutions with games like this can be quite helpful. And then the last game I kind of wanted to look at here is SimCity for Windows. And so we're running this at 1280 by 1024, and we are running it in 64K high color mode, and it seems to run just fine. You can actually see a lot of the city in this mode. Whether you like that or not is a different matter. But one thing I did notice, when LGR did a video some time ago, and he ran this game in a higher resolution, and his card actually had problems with anything over 256 colors. There'd be weird discolorations around like the airplane and the monster and certain things, and I am not getting that issue. So that may have been an issue not with the game but with the card. So it seems like this card with the Vision 9XX chip on it is not having any issues displaying SimCity for Windows at more than 256 colors. So that is good. Again, maybe that speaks to the the legendary compatibility of S3 video chips. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, this game runs fine. Now, just for funsies, I did try to run it in like the super high resolution mode just to see if anything did happen. And unfortunately, for whatever, even though like the view screen that you can see is 1280 by 1024, if I would try to run it in any higher kind of resolution, the game would just crash. But again, no big deal. This is 1280 by 1024, especially with 64K color, is quite enough. Not that this game actually even takes advantage of. I don't think this game even takes advantage of more than 256 colors, but hey, it seems to be working.
Alright, so after doing all those tests and looking at what this card can do, has it changed my mind about it? As far as that bold statement I made at the beginning of the video. And I would say, if anything, my testing and benchmarking has just reinforced my opinion that this is quite possibly the best VLB card that there is out there in general. I haven't tested all VLB cards out there in existence, but just for all-around usage, this thing is great. Very high compatibility. Few exceptions. Well, one exception in our testing, and that was with Commander Keen. We were able to easily fix that. But other than that, compatibility was great. Even in SimCity, at those the 64K high color, there were no weird glitches. Yeah, good compatibility. I think it was fast all the way around. It was great in DOS. It was really great in Windows. Yes, it is not the fastest VLB card out there. Yes, the ArcLogic beat it by a little bit. Yes, the ET4000, certain cards like at that level will beat this thing in speed in DOS. But again, we are talking a couple FPS that you will probably not even notice. Yeah, for all-around usage, this is a excellent card. DOS, like it is a very good card in DOS. It's very capable. Right up there, as I said, with the big boys, the ET4000s and the ArcLogic cards. For memory, though, it's not a big deal. I mean, the memory doesn't really help at all with DOS. You're fine with a 1 megabyte card in DOS. 1 megabyte, you're going to be fine. It doesn't really help that much. But the extra memory, the 4 megabytes for Windows, of course it's not necessary. And if all you're doing is gaming, you're probably not going to get too much out of the extra memory. But, you know, if you're doing some other things and you really want those high resolutions and the high colors and the good refresh rates, this card is excellent for that task. And, you know, even if you're just gaming and you're not really utilizing the extra memory, I gotta admit, I think we all should just admit, it's kind of nice to know the power is there, even though you're not using it. I haven't checked prices for these kind of things on eBay, if they even come up very often. I did a while ago. I'm sure prices are obscene. You know, don't pay obscene prices, but, you know, just be aware if you want to get one of these cards. Last I checked, they are pretty rare, at least the ones with the 4 megabytes. But, yeah, other than that, excellent card. I'm really happy with it in there, and it really makes this system a little bit more unique. So stay tuned. We have a final part, part 3, and in part 3 we're going to tackle the sound, and I have something pretty exotic and rare for that third part video. We're going to be getting rid of this Sound Blaster 16 with a Vibra chip. This is a great card still, but we're going to put something a little bit more interesting in there. Hopefully we'll be able to get it working. We'll see. But other than that, yeah, stay tuned for part 3 of this upgrade series. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.